that target Aboriginal women. There have been many documented cases, for example, of provincial court judges who operate sex rings of Aboriginal women defendants who will require sex from Aboriginal women defendants, especially underage defendants, and thereby give them reduced sentences. This is here in BC, and this is a matter of public record.
Very clear. You know, this theme about the blood of innocents or the virgin sacrifice. This is, I think, is something that I've been picking up on in covering a variety of stories, and it just seems central to the philosophy that's driving the dysfunctional or false ideology that's driving this conduct. This idea that in the Old Testament of the Bible, people talk about Moloch as this demon that people would worship by casting their children into a fire. So the virgin sacrifice in those times, people are talking about child sacrifice or the blood of the innocent. And somehow this is interpreted as a means to win favor from God in terms of crops or success in hunting or success in war. Perhaps in our time, you know, the people still worship the old gods, just as many of the famous authors such as David Icke describe in their books. And that this we're seeing that ideology in action through these assassins living in our society who bear the mark of some kind of indoctrination and participation in ritual. You know, he talks about our sacrifice. He doesn't talk about my sacrifice. He doesn't describe it in the first party. He talks about more than one person. Just as he says in the jailhouse interview that there's 15 others, and people have asked questions about, you know, where are the others? Whatever happened to the others, you know, that Pickton described, that people felt there were more than Robert Pickton involved in the killings and the transportation of the women. And as you're elaborating on the connection with the Hells Angels, with the powerful gangs in British Columbia that controlled the marijuana operations. But our sacrifice, there are more perpetrators and there are more ideologues aligned with this kind of philosophy. You know, Pickton is the hatchet man, but you know, there's more Robert Picktons waiting to be hatched, as long as this kind of wrong psychology is predominant in the minds of responsible people in our communities.
Yeah, and this interfaces with what some analysis is called, quote, the black nobility of Europe. I mean, if we go to the founding of the Bilderberg Club in 1954, that essentially was set up through two royal houses. One, the House of Windsor. Secondly, the Dutch throne. Both of them control petroleum, land, and uranium, with the Rothschild interests out of the city of London and with their American subcontractors, the Rockefeller and the Skull and Bone interests. Skull and Bones was set up in 1776 at Yale University, not 1832 as advertised, but in 1776, the year of American independence, Declaration of Independence, as, quote, the second chapter of the Illuminati with its secret name, the Brotherhood of Death. So, and the British throne and the Dutch throne are known as the black nobility because they secretly engage in, one could call it, identification with the darker entities that have been reputed to govern the fourth density and have been and do engage in ritual sacrifice of infants and adults, and drinking of blood, in ritual sex. And we've had many documented reports from whistleblowers that have testified to that from the British and the Dutch throne.
So one of the conclusions I'm drawing from, the deep comments that you're providing on the show with regards to these messages from Pickton, the transcript, is that the general public, should not just look at this as Pickton as the lone gunman, but should take a deeper look at the questions this raises about the nature of a society where this could go on for so long before even the supposed perpetrator was caught. This was going on for years. How can we support an environment where this is normal? Where bloodlust is endorsed, and there's mechanisms of control that are keeping the truth from the public and keeping people from what could be a real resolution to the crisis in our communities that we're being faced. We are constantly under assault, not by Osama bin Laden, but by these perpetrators in our own midst.
Yes, and this comes down from the top. It comes down from the House of Windsor, from the throne of England, from Queen Elizabeth II, and down through the Masonic orders of Canada, through the judges, through the police. I personally have had a client in 1989 and 1990 where I won a $755 million default judgment against the government of Ontario for invasion of privacy and mind control, and that was unlawfully overturned by an improper appeal and by a judge, again, that was part of this Masonic these Masonic networks, and all of that is a matter of public record in my book, Billivet Cases.
That's very interesting material, Alfred. It's been so kind of you to spend some time reviewing this information with me. I felt that although for people who have been following alternative trends in the news and society for a long time, this material may be no surprise. I think it injects considerable vigor into the dialogue locally regarding the Pickton case, and hopefully the international investigators who are taking a closer look will explore the leads that we're amplifying in today's show. Did you have any final remarks you wanted to, summary remarks you wanted to make regarding the case or regarding this new analysis?
Well, I know that it's these are weighty matters. They're matters of life and death for the First Nations community, for the young women who make their living on the streets of Vancouver, for their families, for we in the community of Vancouver who ourselves are subject to a judiciary and a police department and a political system which is infiltrated by a very ancient Masonic secret structure that comes down from the top, from the very House of Windsor on down, that is based on principles that MK Ultra accentuated of ritual murder. And so there's a direct connection between that and the Pickton murders, and that the Vancouver Police Department, the RCMP, and the courts of British Columbia and the mainstream media were able to carry out this case with such sang-froid, with such cold-bloodedness as a system and as an institution, and never once bring out the fact that Robert Pickton is most probably an MK Ultra controlled mind control asset is just extraordinary, and is a testament as to why the Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper, has brought Canada to war in Afghanistan on the basis of 9/11, because 23 Canadians were killed there, when in fact 9/11 was carried out by the highest levels of a command and control network within the government of the United States in which certain circles of the government of Canada, including those in command of NORAD on that day, were complicit. So, the more that journalists like yourself are courageous enough to speak out, the more that we can get this story out, perhaps people will stop and begin to listen and begin to say, wait a minute, it's impossible that this one man could have carried out 49 murders. It doesn't stand. And it's impossible to have had all of these parties with public officials, with Hell's Angels, with, ritual parties at which young Aboriginal women were brought to dance, and there was a whole foldy roll, and then, all of the steps leading up to ritual without the connivance of an MK Ultra network, which is probably the same network that is tied up with the CIA control of the cocaine and heroin traffic and of the marijuana traffic back down to the United States.
Distinguished international war crimes judge, Vancouver-based Alfred Lambermont Weber, thank you very much for spending time here on Secret Message Television. I'm John Kelly from YourInnerVoice.com, also the Vancouver UFO Examiner for Examiner.com, where you can read about this interview and many more fascinating stories. We'll be back again.